Do you see this? This is the face that I make when I think about replacing the pads on the DT1770s. Okay? This is the face. This is William Shatner playing Denny Crane in Boston Legal. Season 1, Episode 1, at the very end. This is the face he makes. And this is what my inner self feels like. Now, part of me just wishes that one day I will be as cool as Denny Crane, the character, or as William Shatner, the person. But that's for a different time and a different episode if we ever get to one, and frankly, you don't care. So let's talk about... Oh, let me just get this. Yes. Our dear old friend, the DT1770s. Let me pull the camera down a little bit so that you can see. Here we are. And with me is my little friend, a glass of white wine. Gewürztraminer. Ha 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 ha. Gewürztraminer. It's German, just like these headphones. But unlike these headphones, this Gewürztraminer actually is good. You know how easy it was to open up the bottle of Gewürztraminer? It was very easy. It was easier than trying to mess with this, the ear pads. So let's talk about the ear pads. Now, since my last episode yesterday, I had a few comments about the ear pads, and one of my subscribers asked, hey, how come the other reviewers haven't talked about the difficulties that you're having, meaning me, the difficulties that I've had, and I've talked about, I don't know. I really don't know. If I knew, then my face would not be like this. My face would not be like Denny Crane, but unfortunately, I can't explain why other people haven't run into these issues. I talked about a couple of explanations. One, they didn't have the headphones long enough. They didn't replace the pads. They didn't run into the same issue that I've been running into. And even if that is the case, even if the other people did not run into the same issue that I have, that doesn't mean that my points are invalid. Because I'm showing you. I'm not just telling you. I'm showing you what the problem is. And if you see it happening with me, then there is a probability that it will happen with other people. Because how many of these headphones has Beyerdynamic made? Tens of thousands easily. And they're obviously pushing very hard for these types of headphones to be sold because now they're partnering with Massdrop to make another version of the 1770s. And for anybody who thinks that the 1770s and the 177X Go, the one from Massdrop, in build is going to be different, I think you'll be surprised. Or maybe not. I'm not going to be surprised because I know the build is not going to change. Because I also know that these big companies want to get as much money as possible through Massdrop. I mean, understandably, right? They want to make a profit. Why would they go and re-engineer their headphone if all they're doing is giving you the same headphone? Now, for those who say, well, there's a sound differentiation and it's a lower power requirement, well, these are pretty easy to drive despite the fact that they're 250 ohms. You know, when I did my sound leak test yesterday on my dark voice, it was at 9 o'clock. That's as high as I could take these without hurting my ears. Whereas with the One More triple drivers, I took them all the way to 12 o'clock before it started hurting. So I don't think that these are particularly hard to drive. In fact, I've been using them with the what is it? It's the Liquid Spark, the monoprice Liquid Spark, and it powers fine. So these are not difficult to power. If Beyerdynamic has done something with the drivers to make it less power dependent, that's great. But that's easier to fix than redesigning the entire casing. Do you know why? Because if they redesign the entire casing, if they redesign even just the pad placement, if they redesign the headband issue that I talked about yesterday, that means they need to create new molds. They need to create new manufacturing processes in order to assemble those headphones. And if it's a Massdrop headphone, which means that it's going to be in limited quantities anyway for a limited time, and it may come, it may go, so you may have it for this year, You may not have it next year. They may bring it back. Who knows? But let's assume that it's a one-time thing. They're not going to retool, spend money on a pair of headphones that they're only going to sell once. That would eat into their profit. And once again, Beyerdynamic, like with any big company, is all about profit. So let's have a drink of Gewürztraminer again. So before I start, I want to show you what the problem is. Again, one of the problems is right here. The pad's not all the way in. Now it's I've pulled on it, yanked at it, I've tried to get it in a little bit, but it's still not sealed. Here it's even worse. Right? I mean, do you see that? It's substantially worse. I have the Velour pads, the real Velour pads, and yesterday I said I don't know which pad is which is the analytical, which is the balanced. There's no labeling on the back. There's no labeling on the front. I don't know which one's which. I couldn't find anything on their website that tells me which of these pads is which. I've done a Google search to see if some other reviewers have mentioned it, and I haven't run across anything. I don't know which one's which. Their manual doesn't seem to say, at least not the stuff I got. And when I checked online, I couldn't find any mention of it. Okay, so pads very, very thin, spongy, not in a good way. Easy to take off, it just peels off. So we're going to peel one off, we're going to peel the other off. And in case I didn't say, this is about the pad replacement. All right, so this episode is only about the pad replacement. And this is what has happened. Do you see this? It's malformed. Malformed, disformed, deformed, whatever. Because it wasn't sitting properly. And so now this is... hold on. Sorry. Now this is... it's not ruined, but... Look. And it's cheap. It's so cheap. It's vinyl. Guys, it's vinyl. This stuff here is vinyl. This stuff here, it's not real leather. Trust me on this. It's not real leather. It's fake leather attached with vinyl with sponge. That's all this is. Okay? That's all this is. The only difference I can see between the Pleather and the Velour, besides, the Velour being Velour, the other one being Pleather, is that on the back, there are 4 holes in the Pleather. 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas in the Velour, there isn't. There are no holes. So this is what gives you the different sound signature, along with the different Pleather material, obviously, this is going to give you a different sound signature than the Velour, because the Velour tends to breathe more. But this is it. This is what makes it different. Okay? As far as padding is concerned, I'm eyeballing it, I don't notice any difference in the padding. Like, one is not more padded than the other. So conceivably, what you could do is you could get better quality ear pads, and if they fit, you could just put 4 little holes in the back, and you would conceivably have the same thing. Kind of interesting, huh? I'm not surprised about how cheap that is. I am not at the least surprised about that. Okay, so the other thing I guess I should look at is the vinyl material. This is also vinyl, but it's not deformed like the one with the Pleather. So here's how I've been doing this. Okay, it'll be hard to see, but I'll do the best I can. This is the circular resting portion. This is where it compresses onto the ear pad, but there's this channel here all the way around. It's about half an atom's width. It's so small. A gnat could not fit in here. It is. You could use it as a sieve. And so the question is, how do you put this on? Do you stretch it over? Because with most pads, what happens is you just stretch it over one side, then you stretch it all around. But that's not how these work. Okay? I tried that, and that's not how these work. Instead, if you take a look at it, there are two grooves, one on the left, one on the right. And these grooves is where you have to slide the ear pad, the back of the ear pad onto, and then you just got to work it through. At least that's the only way I was able to put the pleather ones on. So that's what I'm going to do here, okay? This is going to be real time. All my frustration, all my cussing, all my difficulty, you're going to have to sit through this and watch it, because if I'm going to have to do it, you're going to have to watch. And this is why my channel is different. Other people wouldn't do this for you, or to you, depending on how you feel about this. All right, so what I'm going to do is... So this is the right, this is the left. It doesn't really matter because it's not labeled, right? So the ear pads are not labeled in any way. Forget balanced versus analytical. It's not left and right. So there's no designated left or right ear pad. It is what it is. You can put either on either side. And I should probably just take this cord out because it might be a little easier. Hello, mini XLR on one side. So the idea is that I get this vinyl into that notch and just kind of slide it into it, see if that works. I'm not going to put audio with the, or music with this video because these headphones don't deserve music. I mean, they deserve to be listened to, but they don't deserve music. Okay, so I've got it latched on. Now the question is, do I also try to latch it on this way? And I can. If I can, I will. All right. So both are latched on. Now the idea is, nope, came right out. And try it again. Sorry, the microphone's in the way. I forgot. My fault. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to set it in and then rotate the ear pad to get it in. And it's not easy because as soon as you start doing that, it flops out. And you also have to make sure that it's actually in the groove when you do it. And it becomes harder and harder as you go around the circumference of this ear cup because you're lifting up and trying to put it into place. And you can already see that it's beginning to deform. I mean, like this right here, now I'm having trouble getting it in. And for those who might think, hey, get a tool, get a small screwdriver or something, put that in. But I thought about doing that, but the problem is this is vinyl, it's just going to rip right through it. Any sharp object to try to put in there is going to rip right through. And if I had an atomic knife, I don't know why I keep looking at the microphone when I talk, but if I had an atomic knife, an atomic size knife, then that might be perfect. All right, so far, it's wedging itself in there, but I'm taking my time. I have to. It's not a simple matter of stretching it over and onto the ear cup, it's, this thing is fighting me. Obviously, because it's being tensed. And the part of the problem with vinyl is that it only has so much stretch to it, whereas with leather, you can, because it's, essentially it's skin. Essentially, it is skin. Essentially, Jesus. It is skin. It can stretch a lot more than the vinyl can. Vinyl is just plastic. And, it doesn't have the give and the sway and the malleability as leather does. What did he look like? He looked like, wearing an Egger suit. Remember from Men in Black, the first movie? Egger suit. Great movie, by the way. That was a good movie. The first one was. The second one, ugh. So they didn't need to bring Kay back in the second one. And by then, Tommy Lee Jones just looked really decrepit. Like they pulled him out of some sort of old person's home. And they said, you're contracted, you're obligated to do one more movie. And he's like, all right. And he just showed up. And it looked like he was telephoning in his entire acting in Men in Black 2. Men in Black 1, good. Men in Black 2, not so good. Okay, hooray, hooray, hooray. So what I did this time was, instead of rotating the ear pads, I just stretched it over, but it took a lot of effort to do that. Let me double check if there's any lumpiness. There is. There's still a little bit of lumpiness where this is not properly seated, and this is where that groove is. I told you about. That's where the groove is, and there's still lumpiness in there. Both my dogs are snoring on the couch right now. They've had a long day, a long, hard day of doing dog things. Okay, so it looks like the right ear pad is on. As good as it's going to get. Now, with some ear pads, with some manufacturers, what they do is they have the back of the ear pad thicker than the front, because as your ear pad is sitting, ear pad is sitting on your ear. You want the back to be thicker because of the curvature of your head. If it's thicker, then it's actually going to make a full seal, or a better chance of making a full seal. But the Beyers don't have that. So the Beyers are just even all the way around, which contributes to the lack of sound isolation. Not sound isolation, but it contributes to the leakage of the sound. Okay, so time me. I don't know how long that took me. I wasn't really paying attention, but you will because you're looking at the video. And if you say, hey, that's not very long, okay, great, it's not very long for you. But for me, that's too much effort because you have to be really careful with it. And now the problem with the... Now I got to do it again. See, that's... Why do I keep looking at the microphone when I talk? Okay, so I'm going to try again with the other side. Is anybody excited about the new Star Wars? I'm not. The magic is gone since Rian Johnson ruined the second one. I just can't get myself worked up about that. When J.J. Abrams launched The Force Awakens, I was really excited. And even though it was like basically a copy of A New Hope, I loved it. Because J.J. Abrams did something new. Well, he photographed it, he filmed it in a new way, and it just looked phenomenal. And Han Solo's death at the end was a big shock and surprise to me, it's one of the things that resonated. But, Rian Johnson just kind of is a fool. All right, so I've got part of it in. Now it's the matter of getting the rest in. Oops. So the part of the trick here is that you got to make sure you keep constant pressure on the part of the ear pad that's already seated inside the atomic groove, or the atomic trench. Groove, trench, same thing. And if you screw up, right, like if it's getting lumpy, then you got to pull back. You got to do it again. So like right here, it's a tiny bit. You just got to keep working at it. Now imagine that you have a project to do, and you want to swap pods. You want to swap pads for whatever reason. You're going to sit here doing this instead of working on your project. This is what you're going to have to deal with. But people say, hey, I'm not going to switch pads that much. All right, so you're going to want to eventually decide which pads you do want to listen to permanently. But how are you going to do that if it takes you 15 minutes of pad swap? You're going to forget you're going to forget how the headphones sounded with the pads that you just took off. Come on, you can do it. Now I can tell this is going to be a problem right here. It's just, come on, you can do it. All right. And this is going to be a problem too because the headband's in the way. Oops. So the other problem, don't do this next to a table or any hard objects because you're going to keep bumping the back of the ear cup on the desk like I have. I don't know if you can tell, but this is like right here, it's really getting difficult to get it in there. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to delay this. I'm trying to get this done so I can move on with my night, but I also want to get it right. I don't want to, I'm going to do the sound test this weekend, and I don't want to have an issue where I'm not happy with the sound test because the ear pads aren't sitting properly, and I'm concerned that part of the problem with the sound test will be because I didn't seat the ear pads correctly. And that wouldn't be fair to the headphone review, and it wouldn't be fair to you. So I've been stuck right here for the past however many minutes, and I cannot get this. Come on. I don't know how to do this. Get in there. Come on, you can do it. So what I just did was I pulled and then I pushed my other thumb over it immediately to just try to get it seated, and it kind of works. If these ear pads swiveled like this, right? If it actually did swivel, then I wouldn't have to worry about the headband being in the way, but the headband's in the way, and it gets more difficult to seat the ear pad. Come on. Yes, William Shatner, you're right. This is exactly how I feel right now. By the way, Boston Legal was a good show. I didn't watch it for years until there were big rumors that it was going to end. And it ended, so then, that's when I started watching it, and I was like, wow, this is a funny show. It's not true to life, obviously. Most shows are not true to life. Vast majority of shows are not true to life. But it was still entertaining. And I especially like William Shatner's portrayal of the character. It was different than anything else I've ever seen him in. And they brought back a lot of Star Trek actors from previous shows. Odo was a character, a permanent character on the show, all 4 seasons. Quark, the guy who plays Quark, was in there often. Who else was in that? Guest appearances. They had a number of guest actors on the show, episode to episode, that had previously worked on Star Trek shows. Unfortunately, none of the original cast from the original series, none of them showed up on the show. Like Leonard Nimoy wasn't there. He was alive at the time, and he didn't do any shows. And Leonard Nimoy had stopped acting. He was more concentrating on his photography and his art, which is cool. Became more of a Zen kind of guy at that point. I heard that William Shatner was a little upset. He was not asked to participate in the remake, J.J. Abrams' remake of Star Trek. And so what the studio ended up doing, what Paramount ended up doing is they had William Shatner do this kind of sit-down, televised or recorded interview with Chris Pine. And that was kind of funny to watch. Okay, did it, and my fingers are hurting, like my index finger from pulling on this vinyl. Okay, no more lumpiness. That's done. Both ear pads are now properly seated. Time. How long did that take? You time me. I don't know. I have no idea. You could say, hey, doesn't your GoPro knockoff tell you that time? No, actually, because it cuts off per clip. That's why, if you've noticed, some of my audio syncing with the GoPro is off, because every frame, well, not every frame, I think it's every 5 minutes. They're 5-minute clips, and then they cut and they drop some frames, and so it misses some audio, whereas this microphone is going directly into my computer being recorded. So that's where the desyncing happens. I don't know if that happens with GoPro, the real GoPro. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the problem is, like, the reason that they do 5-minute clips, and there are a lot of video cameras, well, DSLRs, and even mirrorless cameras, that have a 15-minute record limit, and then they have to create a new clip, is because if they go beyond that time period, then there's higher taxes, import taxes on them, which is kind of silly. The import taxes are kind of silly for that, because it becomes a video camera, and video cameras are considered prosumer. It's a whole thing. It's stupid. Okay, so done. Then let me put these on. Let me stretch this out so I can actually fit. I wish I knew what the numbers were on the side, because then I could just adjust it, but so the sound isolation is not as good with the Velour as they were with the Pleather, but I find the Velours more comfortable overall than the Pleathers. I don't think the Pleathers are very comfortable. But the sound isolation is better with the Pleathers, for whatever that matters to you. The other problem, like as I was saying, the ear cups are even all the way around, right? So there's the backside is not thicker, so there is a definite gap on the back of my head. There's a There's a gap at the back of my head. There's a definite gap behind my ear. If the ear pads were thicker on the back, there would be a seal back there, but there isn't. That's where most of the sound leakage will come from, and that's a fault of. And that's the fault of this pad system. Now, if you can get pads, sorry, did I screw that up? Nope. So if you can find compatible pads that are thicker on the back, then I think you're going to get much, much, much better sound isolation. You're going to be able to prevent a vast majority of that sound leakage. But until I find something like that, I can't really say for sure. I wish Deconi or Brainwaves would make ear pads for that. But Deconi doesn't have ear pads, like I said yesterday. I ordered a pair of ear pads from Deconi, but they're not angled. They're not angled, but they're not thicker on the back. I don't know. I just don't know if anybody's going to do it. So that was live. You saw how hard it was for me to put on the ear pads. And unfortunately, this is not... I cannot say that this is ruined, because I bet with a little bit of heat, this will flatten out, or just with time. Put too much heat and it'll just melt. But, I'm still unimpressed, because they just drilled 4 holes, not all the way, just a little bit. I don't know how deep these are. Can you see? I wonder if you can see this. And that's the hole. This is what makes the ear pad so special. Strange. The other problem is the ear pads are circular. That's not how human ears work. And so when I have these on, the top and bottom of my ears are hitting. That's a problem that goes into the comfort issue. It shouldn't be hitting. It really shouldn't be hitting. You just make it an oval. All right, that's that. I'm done. Now you saw it. You tell me whether that seemed difficult. I can tell you it was difficult, but you tell me if you think that was difficult. Real time, me putting all my effort into making this fit. My finger now hurts, and I am not replacing these pads again. I'm just not going to do it until the Deconi pads come in, and then I'm going to do an update. But wow, look at this thing. This is, well, something fell.